Georgia, where nature and history are inseparable. Mountain villages still preserve traces of a centuries-old way of life. Many structures were placed high above the valleys, beyond easy reach of the outside world. The harsh geography of the Caucasus has given this country a singular character. Today, we explore Georgia's most extraordinary places, from ancient strongholds and sacred sites to remote villages hidden deep in the mountains. Shatili. Located on the northern slopes of the Greater Caucasus Mountains, Shatili is a unique settlement composed of stone towers. With origins dating back to the early Middle Ages, most of the towers were built between the 9th and 13th centuries. The deep valley formed by the Arguni River makes the surrounding landscape even more striking. At first glance, the settlement resembles a large mountain fortress, rather than a typical village. However, the architectural layout here is quite different from that of an ordinary village. Stone houses and defensive towers are interconnected, forming a single fortified complex. Thanks to the dense layout, the roofs of some houses serve as walkable courtyards for the houses above. Today, only a small number of families live here, and it is better known as a historical destination. Gergeti Trinity Church. The church is a historic place of worship located in northern Georgia, with origins dating back to the 14th century. The structure stands within a vast mountain landscape, dominated by Mount Kazbek. Against the striking mountain silhouette, it forms one of the most photographed scenes in the world. From its elevated position, it dominates the surrounding valleys. From this height, the town of Stepantsminda lies in the valley below. Its position along the Caucasus mountain passes made this settlement important for trade and travel throughout history. The structure is not heavily ornamented, reflecting architectural simplicity. This restrained approach is a defining feature of mountain church architecture. The bell tower was constructed separately from the main structure. This arrangement is common in medieval Georgian complexes. Standing for centuries in a rugged mountain environment, it remains one of the most visited landmarks in Georgia. David Gareji Monastery complex. Located in the semi-desert hills of eastern Georgia, the complex is quite different from typical monasteries. Dating back to the 6th century, it began with a tradition of seclusion established by the Syrian monk Saint David on a desert plateau. Some of the churches and cells were carved directly into the rock, rather than built from stone blocks. On the walls of the rock-cut chapels, faded frescoes from the Middle Ages can still be seen. These frescoes depict saints, angels, and scenes from the Bible in a simple yet expressive style. However, life in this monastery was shaped not only by its artistic heritage, but also by harsh natural conditions. Because it is located in a dry region, the survival of the monastery largely depended on water systems. Thanks to cisterns and channels carved into the rock, the monks were able to sustain their lives in this challenging environment. At the center of this extensive monastic settlement stands the Lavra. Within its courtyard, a solitary cross marks the sacred character of the space. The interior creates a simple and modest place of worship beneath vaulted stone arches. In a more distant and isolated part of the complex lies the Natlismtsimeli Monastery. Dedicated to John the Baptist, this monastery consists of rock-cut cells and small places of worship. These rock-carved cells make the monastery feel like a hidden monastic city carved into the mountain. Its isolated location made it especially suitable for a life of seclusion and meditation. Tbilisi. Set in the valley of the Kura River, this historic city is shaped by a rich cultural and historical heritage. One of the most remarkable structures of this heritage is the Holy Trinity Cathedral, also known as Samaba. This monumental cathedral was built as part of a major post-Soviet construction project. Rising nearly 100 meters, it is one of the largest cathedrals in the Orthodox world. Its massive dome dominates the skyline, visible from almost every part of Tbilisi. Perched on a hill above the city, Narikala ranks among its oldest defensive structures. The first foundations of the fortress are believed to date back to the 4th century. The name Narikala, meaning a fortress difficult to capture in Georgian, reflects its formidable defensive character. Within the fortress complex stands the Church of St. Nicholas, an important site in the country's religious life. With origins dating back to the 13th century, the church was also used as a gunpowder storage facility for a period in the 19th century. Upon entering the interior, the first element that draws attention is the frescoes covering the walls. These compositions fill the interior with a striking visual intensity. Today, Narikala and its church rank among the most visited historical sites in Tbilisi. Rising on a rocky hill above the Kura River, Mtskheta Church is one of the most iconic landmarks of the city. According to traditional sources, the first place of worship on this hill was built in the 5th century. The present structure was rebuilt in the 13th century, during the reign of Demetrius II. The bronze statue standing opposite the church represents Vakhtang Gorgasali, an important king in Georgian history. Depicted on horseback in a commanding posture, the king is considered the founder of Tbilisi. Together, these two structures form one of the most recognizable silhouettes of the city. Another prominent monument in the city is the Mother of Georgia statue, located on Sololaki Hill. This monument was built in the mid-20th century to commemorate the 1,500-year history of the city. Standing above the city, it resembles a powerful guardian watching over Tbilisi. In one hand, the cup of wine symbolizes hospitality, while the sword in the other represents the will to defend. Originally constructed from wood, the statue was later reinforced with an aluminum covering. Sioni Cathedral, located in the Old Town, is another important religious structure in Tbilisi. Its interior is richly decorated with frescoes, icons, and detailed stonework. Near Tbilisi stands the Chronicle of Georgia Monument, a large structure presenting the country's history through visual storytelling. The complex consists of massive columns reaching heights of around 30 meters. The upper sections of the columns depict important kings and leaders from Georgian history. The lower sections feature scenes from the Bible and religious depictions related to Christianity. The monument stands as a powerful symbol uniting the history and faith of Georgia. Leaving Tbilisi behind, the journey continues onward. Chazhashi. The settlement lies at an elevation of over 2,000 meters in the mountainous Svaneti region. The village was inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List in 1996 as part of Upper Svaneti. This status is due to the exceptional preservation of the stone houses and defensive towers in the village. Most of these structures, known as Svan towers, were built between the 9th and 13th centuries. Rising among flat stone-roofed houses, these towers shape the unmistakable silhouette of Svaneti. The towers are multi-story and served both defensive and residential purposes. The deep valley, carved by the Anguri and Shavskala rivers, forms a striking landscape for the settlement, with towers rising above it. This village is an important destination for visitors who want to experience traditional Svan architecture up close. Akhaltsikhe Castle. This castle complex is one of the most remarkable historical defensive structures in Georgia. It consists of an upper section with defensive structures and a lower section where residential areas are located. The oldest part of the complex is known as Lomsia Castle and was built in the 9th century. The name Lomsia, meaning lion in Georgian, reflects the strong defensive character of the fortress. Thanks to its strategic location, the surrounding valleys and trade routes were controlled from here. The Ahmadiyya Mosque rises at the center of the complex and immediately stands out with its architecture. Built in the 18th century by the Ottoman governor Ahmed Pasha Jakeli, this structure is an important legacy reflecting the Ottoman period of the complex. The madrasa, located just behind the mosque, was a respected institution for religious education during the Ottoman period. In addition, the Samtske Javaketi History Museum within the fortress is an important center that sheds light on the region's history. The gardens within the fortress create a calm and orderly landscape among the stone walls. Juta Valley. The valley stretches at the foot of the Chauki Massif, one of the most dramatic mountain ranges in the Caucasus. With their sharp, rocky peaks, the Chauki Mountains are sometimes referred to as the Georgian Dolomites. Mountain rivers wind through the valley, fed by meltwater descending from the high peaks. Shaped by this constant flow, the valley is surrounded by wide alpine meadows. Narrow trails lead hikers toward the majestic peaks of the Caucasus. Houses scattered across the green slopes, along with wooden guest houses, reflect a traditional mountain way of life. Upper Omalo. This mountain settlement, located nearly 2 kilometers above sea level, remains highly isolated. The Keselo defensive towers rising above the village were built in the 13th century to defend against Mongol invasions. During attacks, villagers took shelter in the towers and defended the settlement from within. Once, this defensive complex included many stone towers, but only a few have survived to the present day. Many of the towers, left without maintenance for centuries, gradually collapsed. In the early 21st century, restoration work began, and 5 towers were rebuilt using traditional methods. Today, these restored towers clearly show why Keselo was once a strong defensive point. Mtskheta. This city is one of Georgia's oldest and most sacred places. It was established at a strategic point where the Kura and Aragvi rivers meet. Rising above this confluence, Javari Monastery is one of the finest examples of 6th century Georgian architecture. From this height, the church overlooks the former capital like a silent guardian. Its layout reflects early Caucasian church tradition, shaped by a central dome and a balanced design. This hill is also closely tied to the Christianization of Georgia, traditionally believed to be the place where Saint Nino erected her first cross. At the heart of the city stands Svetitsko Valley Cathedral, among the most sacred structures in the Georgian Orthodox world. The first church on this sacred ground was built in the 4th century, while the current cathedral was completed in the early 11th century. The interior frescoes depict symbolic scenes of the Christian faith, emphasizing unity and divine order. In these compositions, humans, animals, and celestial beings appear together, glorifying God as a unified creation. Above Javari, below Svetitsko Valley, together they form one of the most balanced and iconic landscapes in Georgia. To the north, Bagrati Fortress rises as a striking example of medieval defensive architecture. It was built to control the routes leading into the Aragvi Valley. Among locals, it is also known as the Castle of the Old Man. Nearby, Archangels was an important center of the ancient Iberian kings. Excavations here have revealed palace remains and pagan temples. Located to the west of the city, in a narrow valley, Shiomgvima Monastery is one of the oldest monastic centers in Georgia. Founded in the 6th century, the monastery later became home to a thriving community of monks. The complex includes a main church, monk cells, small chapels, and fortified walls. The surrounding rocky slopes are filled with hundreds of carved shelters used for a life of seclusion. Kinchkha Waterfall. Located in the Imereti region, this site is one of the most impressive natural formations in Georgia. It lies within a deep limestone canyon shaped by the Akhaltsikhe River. Rather than a single drop, it unfolds as a wide three-tiered waterfall. The largest tier drops nearly 70 meters, creating the most powerful cascade in the valley. Paths along the canyon reveal sweeping views of the cascading waterfall. Today, it stands among Georgia's most visited natural landmarks. Khertvisi Fortress. Traces of settlement dating back to ancient times have been identified on the hill where the fortress stands. Most of the defensive structures visible today were built between the 10th and 14th centuries. It stands at a strategic point in a narrow valley where the Mtkvari and Paravani rivers meet. This position allowed the fortress to control trade routes entering Georgia from the south. Its defensive walls and towers extend along a narrow rocky ridge. At the center lies the inner fortress, while a large surrounding courtyard completes the defensive layout. A small church within the inner section of the complex was built in the late 10th century. In the late 16th century, Khertvisi was captured by Ottoman forces and remained under Ottoman rule for nearly 3 centuries. Today, the fortress stands as a lasting symbol of Georgia's strategic and defensive past. Kvavlo. This settlement in the Tusheti region is one of Georgia's most impressive mountain villages. It stands at a high point overlooking the Pirikiti-Alazani Valley. Its origins date to the medieval period, with the settlement developing around the 13th century. The most striking features are the solid stone defensive towers rising in pyramidal forms. This distinctive architecture defines its remote and striking mountain character. Gremi Archangels Church Complex. The church was built in the second half of the 16th century during the reign of King Levan. The complex is reinforced by wide, solid defensive walls. Its architecture blends the local Georgian style with elements of Iranian origin. Most of the interior frescoes remain remarkably well preserved despite the passage of time. After Shah Abbas's attack in the early 17th century, the city never regained its former power. Dmanisi Archaeological Site. The site lies on the southern slopes of the Caucasus, within a rugged landscape. Here, around 1.85 million years ago, some of the earliest evidence of human presence outside Africa was discovered. Sioni Cathedral is among the site's most important and best preserved medieval structures. The core structure dates back to the 7th century. Over time, the cathedral underwent several repairs due to earthquakes and invasions. The Mongol invasions of the 13th century brought the city into rapid decline and led to its eventual abandonment. Despite destruction and long abandonment, the site remains a rare settlement, preserving its historical significance. Bagrati Cathedral. In the early 11th century, King Bagrat III commissioned this structure overlooking Kutaisi to symbolize royal authority and unity. Its central dome and cross-shaped plan make it one of the most advanced architectural achievements of its time. The turquoise-toned roof was chosen to set the structure apart from its natural surroundings. The cross placed in front of the church symbolizes the transition into sacred space. One of the most notable aspects of its history is its changing UNESCO status. The structure was granted World Heritage status in 1994, but later lost much of its historical authenticity following extensive reconstruction works. As a result, UNESCO inscribed the cathedral on the list of World Heritage in danger and ultimately removed it from the World Heritage list in 2017. Martvili Canyon. This canyon stands as one of the most striking natural sights in Georgia. Historically, it was used by the Dadiani dynasty as a private retreat for rest and bathing. In some sections, the canyon narrows significantly. In these narrow sections, small waterfalls form along the rock walls. One of its most remarkable features is the water's turquoise color. Although naturally colorless, the water appears turquoise due to limestone and sunlight. The high humidity within the canyon supports a dense and persistent green cover. This environmental balance is closely linked to small waterfalls and streams flowing along the rock surfaces. A boat journey through the canyon reveals the landscape from a unique perspective. Surrounded by steep cliffs and flowing water, the experience feels calm and immersive. Russia-Georgia Friendship Monument. The structure is located in the highlands of the Caucasus, overlooking vast landscapes. Positioned on the edge of the deep Devil's Valley, the monument stands at the cliff edge and dates to the early 1980s. From above, the structure reveals a clear semicircular form. At its center, a wide open space allows visitors to move freely. The rock surface beneath it makes the monument's height more apparent. Its interior surface is covered with a rich mosaic composition that spans a wide area. The mosaic presents a unified narrative through figures depicting historical events, social life, and cultural scenes. Visitors can also experience the landscape from above by paragliding around the monument. Today, with its dramatic setting and layered history, the monument stands as one of the region's most striking landmarks. Didgori Battle Memorial. The monument stands on a ridge in the Trialeti Mountains, overlooking a deep valley. It was created to commemorate one of the most important victories in Georgian history. This marked a major turning point that strengthened Georgia's independence. The battle was a decisive victory won by King David IV against the Seljuk army. The central column represents a monumental reconstruction of the Dedabodzi, a pillar used to support the roof in traditional Georgian houses. One of the most striking elements of the complex is the massive steel swords set into the ground. These swords reflect the brutality of the battle and the meaning of that victory. The path, lined with swords, leads directly toward the monument. The sculptures across the site depict fragmented warrior bodies, revealing the traces of conflict. Truso Valley. The valley is located on the northern slopes of the Greater Caucasus Mountains. It contains more than 50 mineral sources. These mineral waters form red, orange, and white travertine surfaces on the ground. The resulting color variation is caused by iron and calcium carried in the water. It is also known for its towers and defensive structures that have survived since the medieval period. Khertvisi Fortress stands among the most prominent, set at a strategic point near the border. The structure is believed to date to the 13th to 14th centuries. Its partially preserved remains reveal the valley's long-standing strategic importance. Many settlements here were abandoned over time for various reasons. Katskhi Pillar. Located in western Georgia, it rises as a solitary rock pillar from the flat landscape. Despite its limited space, the narrow platform supports a small structural complex. The remains at the top date to the 9th to 10th centuries, based on archaeological findings. Within this confined area, there is a church, a living space belonging to a monk, and remnants of old walls. As access to the summit was not possible for a long time, it remained completely isolated for centuries. At this high and difficult-to-reach point, a monk lived here alone for years. Access to the top is provided by a modern ladder installed along the side of the pillar. However, entry remains restricted. Today, the pillar stands as one of the most remarkable and unusual religious structures in Georgia. Dartlo Village. Located in the Gergeti region, the village sits between high mountains and narrow valleys. Beyond a place of habitation, it functioned as a fortified defensive system. The towers were built to protect the village from northern attacks. Most of the structures seen today belong to an architectural layout that took shape in the 18th century. Nekresi. Overlooking the Alazani Valley, the monastery stands in a commanding position. Founded in the 6th century, it played a key role in the spread of Christianity in the region. Nekresi was not only a monastery, but part of a larger ancient city. The city developed between two hills, forming a well-organized and extensive settlement. From this extensive settlement, the monastery remains the most prominent surviving feature. A Zoroastrian fire temple once existed nearby, influencing the region's religious landscape. During the medieval period, clergy struggled to limit the spread of this belief. The monastery, closed in the 19th century, was reopened in the early 21st century after a long interruption. Today, Nekresi stands as a significant site with a layered history, drawing visitors. This journey through the wonders of Georgia now comes to an end. Thank you for being part of it. If this documentary left an impression, consider liking and subscribing. More to explore awaits on the end screen. See you in the next documentary.